Knitting. Hello. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is for you. Welcome or welcome back to the Lochknits Knitting Podcast. Oh, there goes my light. Okay. This is episode 4 of the Lochknits Knitting Podcast. My name is Haley. I am a tattoo artist, crafter, knitter, quilter, all of the above, coming to you from Northeast PA in the United States. If you are a returning viewer, it's been a week and a half, maybe week and a half probably, since I podcast last. We had Thanksgiving here in the United States, which is a grueling and necessary holiday. We all got to do it. So I did some traveling back to Pittsburgh, where I'm from, to attend my family's Thanksgiving. I dragged my boyfriend Nate with me. We always have fun on our little trips out to Pittsburgh together. Oh, there's a truck outside. From the last time I podcast to right now, it seemed like I had nothing to talk about, and then all of a sudden I was gathering everything to sit down and film today, and it feels like I just have so much. So let's just get into the nitty gritty of it, pun fully intended. I have, since I talked to you last, made so much progress on my sweater that we talked about last time that I'm knitting for Vogue Knitting Live. I got some awesome stuff in the mail. I, of course, collected a few items from Sock that I will share. I can't wait to show you guys. She's so generous and sweet. Let's start with what I'm wearing, because I actually have not, I don't think I really gave this piece its time in the sun, if you will. I finished this shawl in the summer. This was my first mystery knit along I ever participated in. This is the Supernova mystery knit along. This was a shawl knit along that happened just this summer, 2023, and the designer is Amba O'Brien. If you have never seen Amba O'Brien's patterns, they are hard. They're difficult. They're very intense typically. There's a lot of intricate lace, some color change action. She's pretty well known, I would say, for her use of Advent minis, which I know is something that most people who've been crafting for a minute are plagued with. The ever growing question of what do I do with my Advent minis. She is #1 designer. If you are up for a challenge and you don't know what to do with those minis, Amba O'Brien is your girl. So I made this shawl in the summer. I followed the knit along, or the mystery knit along, pretty closely. I think I maybe only fell behind once or twice or something, but I just absolutely love this. I love a big shawl. I love all shawls. I'm equal opportunity shawl wearer here. It's just it's so beautiful. Sock lovingly referred to this shawl as my festival shawl because it's massive. It's so big. It's very color crazy, which is fun. Love it. I love the way it turned out. I knit this using a mini skein set from Castleview Yarns, and I actually got a hold of that Advent by accident, sort of, through a good friend of mine, Megan. Ended up with 2 of them. Long story short, I got one of them. She's so generous, so sweet. And I basically just put this fade combo together from the Advent, held it with the main color, was this black kind of yarn here around the edges and on the very ends. I just love it. It's beautiful. It's one of my favorite finished objects in terms of where it meets with wearability, practicality, the aesthetic of it. It's just so fun. I feel like a lot of times I'm plagued with fun knits or process knits that I don't get a ton of wear out of, and this just could not be farther from that. So practical. I do wear it all the time. I think it looks great against plain black turtleneck. I got a white crappy long sleeve shirt on today to pair with it. It just kind of goes with anything that's super plain, because it is the star of the show. So this is my FO today. It's extraordinarily cold today. It's one of the first days that it's really cold in Wilkes-Barre. Sort of bitter, but it is warm in my house, so that's nice. I have my tea, my favorite tea, in my favorite goose mug here. that Sock bought for me. Don't look at my fingernails. I drink Chinese restaurant tea, is literally what it's called. I think it's Dynasty brand. It's just so good. It like so good. I think it's jasmine, oolong, black tea, kind of like a blend of those things. Ugh, I just love it. That's what I'm wearing. That's who I am. Oh, you can find me all over the internet. I have all of my links below. If you are ever looking for me on anything, it's all under Lochknits. If it's not under Lochknits, it's not me. I'm mainly on Instagram. I have my Etsy store linked below. I have a TikTok that I barely use. It's just annoying, like tattoo stuff. I have a Facebook page for all my tattoo stuff. Most of what you're gonna see on the internet is for my tattoo sort of portfolio, but I do pepper in some like crafting activities in there every now and again. So if you can even remotely tolerate this podcast, go give me a follow on the internet. Before I even get into what I have to share with you guys, I wanted to say I got so many kind emails about the Strange Brew book. And although I don't have any like practical information to share with you, if you are also interested in getting a hold of the book, I do think to this day, like your best bet is to just find it at a local yarn store. But I had the kindest viewer, Cheryl. Cheryl, thank you so much. If you are watching this episode, I seriously cannot thank you enough. It is like the most generous thing. Cheryl was so kind to mail me a physical copy of the Strange Brew book. I am so excited. I have a Strange Brew update that I'm gonna share with you in just a few minutes, but I'm just so happy. This is like one of the only knitting books, printed books. Like I'm not a printed pattern person. I like wanna be, and I think maybe in the future, like I'll get there because I do have a lot of printed patterns. I have a fair bit of like knitting literature kicking around that I need to like just dive into one of these days, but this is something that I have wanted in a printed form because I find myself knitting some version of the patterns in this book so frequently. Like I cannot stress enough, if you like color work, if you are a creative person who just needs kind of the bones of a pattern and then you can like jump forward from there, this is so worth it. And of course Cheryl just mailed it to me, didn't ask me for a cent, so I have a little care package that I'm gonna send your way, Cheryl, because this is seriously just like the sweetest thing ever. So I appreciate everyone who sent me an email asking, oh my god, I just love it, asking me if I had still found it. I'm very, very excited. So Cheryl, you're so sweet. And I have to just point out the incredible card that she sent me. Look at this. Oh, that's so cute. I just love it so much. This is so beautiful. I can tell that it is like printed or drawn or painted with love. It's just, it's so cute. I'm gonna put this up in my little crafting station. I might put it in a little frame because it's just so pretty. I love it. Thank you, Cheryl, so much. Seriously, like so kind, so kind. I greatly appreciate it. So, oh my god, what on earth? Thank you for all the nice comments about my hair. I made some sort of like remark on the last episode about how it's just like chaos and nonsense and everything, and everybody's just like really sweet about it. I've recently, like in the last few years, embraced the curly hair life because I just, you know, if you're living this truth, you know, you kind of can't get away from it. Very sweet input from everybody on the last episode about it, but don't mind me. I'm a few days behind wash day, so it's a little messy. On that note, I want to give a little update about the Strange Brew pattern that sparked this entire conversation about the book. I think this was 2 episodes ago, 1 or 2 episodes ago, I don't know. There's only 4 episodes, go find it. But I had knit a Strange Brew, make it your own color work yoke sweater, choose your own adventure, I guess is probably the best way of saying it, sweater for my nephew Henry. He is 4 years old. Henry has since received the sweater and he wore it for Thanksgiving. So I will put a picture of Henry right here sporting his little fit. Oh, he's so cute. I like got this picture and I sent it to everyone I've ever met. He's got his little shoes on. He just looks so happy. And Gail told me, Gail is his mother and my best friend, she told me that everybody at Thanksgiving that said, Henry, I love your sweater. He said, Haley made this, Haley made this. I just love him so much. He's such a good sport. It's so nice to have such a small person to knit for. I love not having to knit full-size adult knits, but you still get like the good feeling of like, look at this beautiful thing I made. It's on a person. The person just happens to be very small. If I make something for your kid and you send me a picture of your kid wearing it, I feel like it adds 2 years to my life, honestly. It's such a wonderful feeling to see little tiny people in knits. It's so nice. Oh, also, I forgot I had filmed this, and it would have already been in the episode, but for the month of December, as I'm filming, I'm going to share with you fine people all of the adventures that our elves on the shelves get up to. We are an elf on the shelf household. Penny, Nate's daughter, is 9 years old. She is a big believer in the elf on the shelf lore. We know all of the history and the process behind how these elves just wake up in the middle of the night and they just get into all sorts of crazy stuff. And I woke up this morning and these elves are sitting at my sewing machine, all kinds of tangled up. They're just so dang creative. I don't know how they do it. And of course, before she left to go to school today, Penny said, "What are you gonna do today?" And I was like, oh, I guess it's gonna have to be a knitting day. If you don't know about Elf on the Shelf, it is a little imp demon beast that shows up in your house. They get into all sorts of wacky business around your objects and your furniture and everything. But the rule with Elf on the Shelf is that you are not permitted to touch them. So the elves have taken over my sewing station today, and it is just not simply in the cards for me. So that's just fine. All right, I am ready to give, oh my God. I am ready to give an update on my striped sweater that I've been knitting for Vogue Knitting Live. So on the last episode, I shared my Vogue Knitting Live plans, or sweater plans, fit plans, whatever you want to call it. My friends and I are going to Vogue Knitting Live. It is the weekend of January 26th. My birthday is January 26th, so it's that weekend. We are going to New York City. We're gonna stay in a hotel and have a nice weekend in the city, doing our festival, doing some yarn shopping. I'm hoping to get some great food. So I wanted to plan a very special outfit, and I told all my pals the theme, if you want to participate, is stripes. So I figured that would be a nice, easy, my cat just almost knocked over my tea. I figured that would be a nice, easy sort of like theme. You can like do whatever colors you want. I know Sock cast on this sweater pattern that I'm about to show you. Also, Brienne just finished one of those like absolutely stunning bandanas with that yarn. I don't know how to describe it. She has like this yarn that is some crazy blend of like fluffy, soft goodness. I don't know. You're gonna see it. I know for a fact she's gonna bring it to Vogue Knitting Live. Brienne, please bring that to Vogue Knitting Live. But I'm excited for like all the fit pics and stuff. And the farther I get into this sweater, the more like totally stoked I am on how this is turning out. So without further ado, let me pull it out of my bag here. Look at it. Oh my God, this is so cute. I am so excited about this sweater. So this is the stripes. Actually, the pattern is just called Stripes, exclamation mark. But it is a pullover pattern by Andrea Mallory. And this came out a few years ago. I think maybe like 2020, 2021, something like that. It's a few years old now. There's so much inspiration for this pattern. The project pages on Ravelry are like so jaw-droppingly beautiful. There's so many different combinations, so many iterations of yarn types and fiber content and like color stories and everything. And this pattern has been on my list for a while now, so I figured I might as well just jump into it and make it another sort of like festival piece. I just love, like, not to brag, but I nailed this color combo. It's like, I would constitute this color palette as delightfully fugly. Does that make sense? Is that something we can get on board with? Sock told me that this sweater reminds her of the Very Hungry Caterpillar. Love it. Love where that energy is going. Love the vibe. Like I'm absolutely on board. So I think all of like 3 rows away from finishing the body. I really wanted to be that person who like finished it up before I podcast today, but I didn't want to rush through the bind off. If at any point like I'm rushing through a knitting project, the bind off is the last thing that I want to like try to push through just for the sake of getting it done. You get the idea. So I have the whole body knit just shy of my 3 rows. So just a few more rows of ribbing across the bottom, and then I'll do a bind off. I have done, I would say, many modifications to this pattern. So before I even get into like the details of everything I've done so far, I'm gonna actually put it on. I did manage to put it on a longer cable so that I could like slip it over just this plain shirt that I'm wearing today to kind of get like a fit check situation. So I'm gonna stop the video, do a little scene change, and I'll be right back. I haven't been able to put this on in the daylight outside of knitting in the little hole of darkness in the living room at like 10 o'clock at night. So this is my first like real try on where I can actually see the colors and see it on me. Oh my gosh, look at that. I'm gonna get back up here for a second. I'm still hooked to my project bag because I did not finish it. So let me just stand up here and we'll get a look. Oh my goodness. I cannot get over it. Like, this is exactly what I envisioned. It's exactly what I wanted. It's, I think, a perfect, I said, sort of like festival sweater. I think it goes good. I think it goes well with my dark hair and everything. It's just like a crazy pop of color. Like, I am not scared of color. And I've had these colors in my stash for so long and I just really wanted to use them. And they were sort of my single skein fingering weight yarn that I like bought with no intentions, but I was like, oh, these are so pretty. If I don't buy them, I'm gonna like be sad about it. So I am just so happy with how they've come together. So let me tell you a little bit about what I've done so far to this sweater, because this is not how the pattern intended it necessarily. So first of all, right off the top, I just told you I knit this with fingering weight. It's not a fingering weight sweater pattern. It's a sport weight. It's working out though. I mentioned on the last episode that if anyone was interested in like how I converted the numbers from a sport weight pattern into fingering weight, it's really not that hard. And I am going to end up doing like a little video. I think probably once I'm all done with this sweater, I'll do like a full finished object video and just kind of explain like the bones of how I did it, because it's totally like a your mileage may vary situation. I don't even think that like maybe necessarily what I did with this pattern would be effective with like every single pattern. And I mean, I also still have the sleeves to knit, so like who knows, who's to say. Assuming it continues on how it's going so far though, I love this. Like, I think that this is like super duper working out for me. It's just really great. It feels really nice. Even now, as I have like a long sleeve shirt underneath, it's like super comfortable. It's plenty warm enough. I love a fingering weight sweater. If you notice, I can't stop like petting. I love a fingering weight sweater. It has perfect amount of drape, just enough structure. Still gives you like an extra layer, but I think this will be great with a shirt underneath it. I'm not totally unconvinced that I'm not gonna layer it anyway, because we are going to New York City in January, so it's not gonna be like warm by any stretch, but I do have intentions of making this fully long sleeved. And I think if I am gonna run into like an issue with the conversion from sport weight to fingering weight, it could be on the sleeves, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Basically, the only like big thing that I did, unfortunately, like when you're thinking about changing pattern from one weight to another, it's a lot of math. It's just a lot of math. It's a lot of gauge swatching, and like, that's just fine. I actually used the gauge swatch that was Henry's sweater that I just showed you, the Strange Brew, to kind of swatch for this. But because this is like sort of, I would say like standard normal fingering weight yarn, like every dyer pretty much uses like really similar bases, some kind of like merino nylon situation, I'm gonna take this gauge and run with it, because I've been knitting for so long and my tension is pretty consistent that I think it should just end up being totally fine. So I will do a little video, like I said, just sort of explaining like the in-depth like math process that I did with this so far. But some modifications just outside of the fact that we did sport weight pattern to fingering weight. I want to talk about some other things that I modified and changed with it. So the first thing that comes to my mind, just like right off the top, there is an option in the pattern for a structured neckline or a not structured, I don't know what she calls it, but there's an option for a structured neckline and then not. The not structured neckline, you basically just like cast on like you would with any top down yoke sweater and like just get going, that's fine. The structured neckline started with what she called for in the pattern for an old Norwegian cast on. I knew I absolutely did not want that. In my mind and in my experience, I could be totally wrong with the old Norwegian cast on. It is used for some sort of like stretch, and like I get that. I get how pulling a garment over your head, like you would certainly want it to like stretch to accommodate like your noggin or whatever, but I've been burned by like the superwash the superwash yarn so many times. Like I knew that stretch is not something that I was like gonna absolutely need in this pattern, so I actually went with a long tail cast on, and my long tail cast ons do tend to be pretty like rigid. I usually will size up a needle to get a less tight long tail cast on. In this instance, looking at the pattern photos, thinking about how I wanted it to fit and everything, the pattern shows a very sort of boat, not true boat neck, but like really stretched out neckline, probably starting, I would say, somewhere around like this green strip here. And I wanted like an actual crew neck fit. I did the same number of stitches to cast on and everything. I literally just changed the method of casting on, which gave me like a really structured edge, and then proceeded to the instructions. Part of the gauge yarn weight difference was that I was actually knitting a size 4. I usually knit in Andrea Mowry's patterns. I think a size 2 is like typical. I think I have like a 34-ish inch bust or whatever, so usually a size 2. I went up to a 4 based off of like the conversions for what I needed, and right now everything seems like great. I can see here I'm getting some sort of like wrinkling situation. It seems like there's a little almost like puckering or whatever, so hope that blocks out. I don't know. Thinking about parts of this pattern that I really like, I love the way that Andrea Mowry has structured the short row shaping in here, and I'm not gonna like go into the big details or whatever, but it is pretty effective to maintain the stripes. So like I'm not gonna even bother turning around, it's just not worth it, but the stripes are sort of unimpacted on the back. There's not like a big panel of short rows, and there's also like no short rows to speak of. So they are incorporated in there. They're a little more like strategic to maintain the stripe pattern. So really like the way that they have looked and turned out, and I'll take the method that she explains in the pattern and I will apply it in the future if I'm knitting some stripe things. It seems like something I'll be able to like carry forward into another project, but I like the way that it's all laying right now. The fit feels perfect for me. There's a little bit of ease. I'm really not that great at calculating how much ease there is in a garment. Like I understand, I know how to calculate, like lay it flat, measure it, like all that stuff, but I feel like every yarn behaves so differently. And I don't have like a incredibly consistent like yarn type that I use with every single project. So I don't worry like too much about ease. I kind of like play it fast and loose depending on like the shape and the structure of the garment and things like that. Outside of that, one of the other big modifications I made is I took the yoke depth and extended it quite a bit. I think I have an extra 2 or 3 inches past where she tells you to do the sleeve and body separation, because I absolutely did not want that like open kind of boat neck. Like I was really looking for the crew neck look here, and I think it worked. So just by like extending this and kind of pushing it down, it seems to have like brought the entire piece up, which I really like. This is, like I said, exactly like the fit that I had intended and sort of envisioned in my own mind. So I'm very happy with that modification. You never know when you're going like too far down with the yoke separation, when you get into like that swancho territory. Have you ever knit like a poncho swancho? I've like knit one before, and it was basically like a totally useless garment. Like you can't lift up your arms without the entire thing coming up, or so that was something I was thinking about, but I found like a nice middle ground. I think it looks great so far. And then the other thing that I'm gonna talk about also in another video with a separate sweater I've already finished. The long story short is that I think I'm about to do some sweater surgery in the next week or so with a piece that I finished a few months ago. I really wanted to make something with like the sweatshirt sort of length and ease factor, where it's not fitted or structured like to your mortal form, or it's just sort of like a big hangy sweater. That did not work for me, and I did not like the finished object. I wore it one time and I'm just like not super feeling it. So that's gonna be a separate video too, as I like pick up and hack into this sweater and try to make changes. But on that note, like while I was thinking about the body length and like how far should I knit this down so that I avoid that issue that I had encountered pretty recently, I was lucky that I ended up trying it on just last night, I think. I tried it on and I was like, oh my God, I have to do the ribbing now. And in the pattern, I think she said in the pattern to like keep knitting for like a certain length. And I know that this is a measurement that is so different for everybody based off of like how you wear your clothes and how your waist is like falls on your body and all that stuff. But let me show you. Like here, these are my pants. These are my jeans that I wear like all the time. They're sort of my like ride or die American Eagle jeans that I wear with like everything. If I am gonna wear a knitted sweater, it's with these jeans. So I've been trying to make a more conscious effort to try on my knits while I'm wearing them. But I tried this on last night and I was on the pale yellow stripe, this Mace of Skeins colorway right here. And I was like, oh dear, I am ready to go. So I'm doing the ribbing right now. I wear all of my sweaters, let me back up even more. I tend to wear all of my sweaters very, I would say very like cropped to what the universe's opinion of cropped is, but like for me, they meet the top of my pants, if that makes sense. So I have like, I guess a short underarm to waist ratio and my pants are very high. Like they absolutely, like my belly button is like here, I think. I wear my pants really, really, really high. High waist pants supremacy. And as a result, like none of the lengths of my sweaters are almost ever even remotely close to like what the designer calls for, which like I get, that's like a me problem. And like I said, it is incredibly contingent to like your body and your like style of how you're gonna wear it, whatever. I'm also coming around to the idea that like the cutie pie, like French tuck look is just not for me. It's too much like fabric. I already wear my pants really high, like they're at like the smallest point of my waist, and like I'm not trying to like shove fabric in there. It looks really cute. I think it looks cute on pattern photos and maybe it's good for some people, but like honestly, it's just painful and like bulky and I'm just like not a fan of it. Even though that's the style right now, I'm not like interested in partaking in it, which is also a mistake I've made on that other sweater. I know this is like so cryptic, me talking about this sweater that I'm gonna be hacking into, but I really do wanna like give it its own video and stuff like that, so I'll talk about that in the future. But as of right now, this sweater is so beautiful. I love the colors. I love how loud it is. I think it's gonna be like a nice little pop at Vogue Knitting Live. Obviously, like my hair's super dark, tend to wear like black shoes and black pants, so I'm looking forward to being loud and proud and stripey and cute. I would love this as a t-shirt. I'm gonna knit this pattern again. Like there's no way that I'm not. It just like it fits so good, it feels so good. This rumbling is driving me crazy. I really hope that blocks out. I don't know. Overall, 10 out of 10 experience so far. I cannot wait to finish this. I hope the sleeves go quickly. I hope they do. I've managed to weave in all of my ends up to this point. I think I have like a few stragglers just from like the last 2 stripes in the yarn that I joined just from last night, but I am well on my way to getting this project wrapped up. I've been very monogamously knitting on this, which obviously helps because it's just like a plain stockinette project. I took it in the car when we drove out to Pittsburgh and back, so I made a lot of progress there and I am pretty determined. Like once it comes to the sleeves, I'm not typically like a sleeve island victim all that much, but we'll see, time will tell. So I'm going to dismantle myself again, tuck this project back in the bag. I do love how it fits. I love how it looks. I'm just so excited for it. So one of the projects that I did manage to finish, not quite knitting, not quilting, but one of the projects that I did manage to finish is actually some spinning, which is so exciting. I was in the process of moving recently. I actually just got done like with my old apartment, turned in the keys, and I'm like, cool, see you later, bye. And I was talking to Sock about how as soon as I need to focus on something, I have like a responsibility to like complete a task, all I want to do is sit down and spin yarn instead of actually doing that task. So I did allow myself just a little spinning time in the process of moving, like as it transpired over those couple weeks that I was really getting out of my old apartment. And I actually managed to finish spinning, and I have 2 final versions of this spin. I have the actual bag that the fiber came in, and I have a piece of the fiber that I found just in like my spinning basket back here. And it's a very interesting like color situation, so I'm really excited to share it with you. So the first thing we'll talk about is, here's the bag that the fiber came in. I bought this fiber 2 years ago, I think 2 years ago, from Paradise Fibers. I think of their like smooth combed top, I don't know, fiber braids, fiber like little bumps of just solid colors. I'll do like a little scroll through their website here and kind of post it so you can understand what I'm talking about, because I really feel like I'm just saying a lot of words that don't really mean anything. So I was on Paradise Fibers website a couple years ago, and I bought this among other things that I picked up from their website. I don't even remember like why I was on there in the first place, but they have really gorgeous, like super smooth braids of like solid colors, and maybe not even braids, just they have solid colored fibers in like a huge selection, wide array of stuff. And I think maybe that's why I was on there. I don't really remember. While I was on there, I found a few, there's actually some kicking around back there still. I found a few braids that were not solid colored, but still like really like super smooth, very like processed fiber in just like random colorways that I don't, maybe they were on sale or something. And I got a hold of this fiber. It looked super weird on the website. It looked super weird in person. I have no idea what color this even is, and I have no idea what color it turned out. So let me just show you what I have. So this is a piece of the fiber that got left behind, or you know how just bits of fiber just kind of end up places around your house? That's what happened here. So here's the fiber. There it is. So, okay. Super smooth, very obviously like combed and pleasant, no like lumps or bumps or anything like that. And it looks like this is some sort of blend of like red, goldy yellow, almost an olive color, and then this teal. And then there's that same teal color stellina throughout the entire thing. So here's the fiber. The bag is Fairy Tale Merino and Stellina blend. The colorway is Over the Rainbow, and it was 4 ounces of this. So I honestly can't even think of like why I bought this. If I'm being real with you, like these aren't my colors, but it is interesting. Like it's very beautiful, and probably what I was thinking at the time is like what I was thinking while I was spinning it is like, what color is this? What color is this going to like read as once it is yarn? As I was spinning it, I've been on this kick to pretty much only use, obtain, and spin fingering weight yarn for like probably a year or so. It got to the point where like my stash was not full, but it became very difficult to like, you know, you have one colorway of this weight, one colorway of the next weight, and like blending weights can get really tricky, and I don't think it like always necessarily produces something that I like or that I want to make with. So in an effort to like have more options when I was looking at my stash, I just decided to only take in fingering weight yarn. I have been on this journey to spin fingering weight yarn, and it's really worked. Like in the last year, I'm incredibly proud of like all of the yarn that I've spun. And as I'm calculating yardage, you know, after the spin is done and everything, it really is coming out to be like a true fingering weight yarn. So whatever I'm doing is working. So I spun this up, 2-ply, no fractal spinning. Like this sort of blend of yarn didn't like strike me as anything worth doing like a fractal split for, so I just didn't do that. Just 2 equal plies of yarn, spun them together, and this is what I got. Like this is cool. It's so pretty. There's a lot of like dimension to this close up, and it's very beautiful, but like what color is this? Nate and I went back and forth on it. Nate, my boyfriend, is also a tattoo artist, so anytime we talk about like colors and colorways and stuff, like he's informed from an artistic perspective too. He calls this oxidized copper, and I'm like, okay, that's like that's an interpretation, whatever. I think it looks, from a distance, it sort of reads as like a dark sage color, kind of green, kind of teal. Sometimes it looks gray. Like I just don't know, and it's just really interesting. I love the mystery of it all, you know, like what does it all mean? But this is what I got. So there is a lot of like blips of red in here, There's some of the gold peeks out in places, but for the most part, I think the gold is kind of lost in it, which was sort of a bummer, but it's okay. So mostly blue, kind of reading as this gray, but then you have like this blue stellina in there, and I can see that like how well that's still showing up on camera, and it's just really cool. So as I'm holding it here on camera, like close to my face, I think it reads as like a gray. I think this is definitely going to be something that is going to depend on what I put it with. So I don't know if I'll use this. I don't know if I might like gift this to someone. Like I'm pretty undecided on it overall. Spinning it was fun. Spinning it was like an adventure. I don't know if I would like buy this sort of blend of fiber again, where it's just like a bunch of different colors sort of, you know, smushed together or combed out together. But it was fun to give it a try. And as I was spinning this, I was thinking about what I was gonna do with the leftovers, because like I'm not a magician. I end up with like a little bit more yarn on one of the plies, a little bit less on the other. So I knew I was gonna have extra. I ended up having like a lot extra. And before I just jumped into like adding on to more of this, because I really couldn't even tell if I liked it at the time, like while I was spinning it, I was like, why don't I do something different and see how the color might shift or change if I put it with a different ply. So I actually had a lace weight yarn that's like, the label is long since passed. It's a lace weight single ply, sort of gray, sort of cream, sort of white colored yarn that I bought back when I like didn't know the difference between lace weight and fingering weight yarn. And so it's just sort of stuck around in my stash as like a thing that I will hold with another yarn to change its color. I think I've plied something with it before. I think I've plied this particular yarn and like another single ply together. Like it's just, everyone has that one skein of yarn in their stash that they're like, oh my God, why don't you just be gone already? This was that. So I knew I had plenty of it. So I actually held it with the yarn I just plied, and I got this sort of like really interesting color situation. So for a comparison, here is, there we go. So this is 2-ply spun on itself, and this is 2-ply spun with that lace weight. It's just sort of plain gray situation, but like look at the color difference in how they read. I thought this was so interesting, a really cool little accident, and just pretty inspiring, because I'm sure this is not the last time I'm gonna get fiber or yarn that I'm like, I don't really like love that, but you still want to like spin it. Like the joy can be in the spinning. So I just love like the difference here. I think it's really fun. I think it turned out very interesting, and this to me is giving more like spin cycle yarn hero energy. I can't explain that. It looks like there's a lot more going on here than there actually is, but these are the two. That's the fun. I think I got 400-ish, 420 maybe yards out of this, and then this was about 80 or so. So for every 4 ounces, I do tend to get close to 500 to like 550 usually yards. So that tells me that I am spinning close to a fingering weight. Does that make sense? Light fingering to a fingering weight yarn. But yeah, that's my spin. I was so happy to have this finished. It almost kind of felt like a stress project because I totally used it to avoid like confronting the responsibility of like packing my entire life up and moving it 20 minutes down the road, which is just like annoying in its own right. But I'm glad that this is done. I have absolutely no idea what on earth it's gonna be, but we'll see. It's done. Okay, I have a bag of goodies from Sock for no reason, which I love. I just tattooed her last week. I can't believe that was last week already. So I just tattooed her last week, and I tattooed, sorry for this little like brief aside here, but I have to just share with you guys this craft tattoo we did. If you are familiar with the Prickly Stitch podcast, that was the podcast that Sock and I had together, If you're not, you can go like follow the back episodes of that. But on one of the very last episodes, Sock was talking about how her boyfriend Ian bought her a spinning wheel, and she just like totally lost it. It was like the best thing that's ever happened to her. It was like very sweet of Ian to do that. Like we still talk about it all the time, and she just loves it. She's on like a huge spinning journey, and it's just well deserved, and something that she uses literally every single day. So she just fell in love with the spinning wheel, and we both have the same kind, which is a Kromsky Minstrel. We both have the walnut one. Those are reading as sort of like the darkest looking one. It looks like, I'm sitting here looking at it, that's what I'm like gesturing to. It reads as like the most beautiful piece of furniture that I have, and the fact that it's functional is like nothing short of a holy miracle, because it just is so pretty. It's like a gorgeous castle style wheel. I'll put a picture in of the Kromsky Minstrel here in the color that we have it. If you are looking for a Kromsky dealer, our best friend Brienne, who is at Moon and Yarn Craft Room, that's Brienne's yarn store, I will link her info below. She can help you. She is a Kromsky dealer. So if you need to get a Kromsky, or you're interested in like getting more information about this kind of spinning wheel, go through Brienne. She's very knowledgeable. She has like the hookup. She'll get you all squared away. Ian got Sock a spinning wheel from Brienne. She fell in love with it. We both have the same kind, so we're in like the Kromsky Minstrel, like, oh, it's the best thing that's ever happened to us, blah, blah, blah. So Sock hit me up a few weeks ago to get tattooed. She wanted a Kromsky Minstrel tattoo, and I said, say less, let's go, like, let's do it. So I will put a picture of that right here. It turned out so good. We tattooed like literally the whole front of her shin basically, and she just like sat like a rock. It came out great, and I think she's pretty darn happy with it. While she was at the tattoo shop, of course, like neither of us ever show up empty-handed, so she brought me a bag of goodies, and I wanted to share them with you now. They're sort of like my acquisitions that I had no part of, and that's exciting. So the first thing, speaking of Kromsky Minstrel, she spun me yarn. Okay, like let's talk about Sock's little guy here. This is Sock's like sort of de facto logo. It looks like her. It looks like her a lot. But this is her little sock lady. So cute. And then on the back here is all the info about the yarn. So this was Knitty and Color, which I've talked about a few episodes ago. But I love Knitty and Color so much. Like, she absolutely nails like every single colorway is just so good. The fiber is Targhee, and it's 256 yards. So Sock really nailed like a true DK weight yarn, and it is absolutely gorgeous. Purple, fuchsia, there's some like really light orchidy parts in here. It's just beautiful. So this was just like a 2-ply, split evenly from what I understand, purple yarn. Oh, the sun could not do me any more favors. Look at this. This is stunning. I really want this to be in a shawl. I have some like, it's over there actually, some like neon green yarn. I have like crazy other purple fiber over here. Like, the inspiration is feeling very real, but absolutely beautiful. I love Targhee wool. I'm not even like a breed specific type of gal. I don't have like a ton of opinion either way. Like, I can basically find a use for pretty much everything. Targhee is one of my favorite types of fiber to spin, and I love the way it knits up. It's like very sturdy. I like that it has like almost, I hope this doesn't sound like off-putting or whatever, but it has almost like a gummy texture. It's not hairy, but it has like a really like structured sort of woolly wool feel to it. Like, absolutely love it. So this is so exciting. I will happily add this to my stash. And then not only is there yarn in there, there's a finished project for me. Stop. Come on. Sock has been on a bandana kick. We like really honed in the bandana style this year. Oh my god. That would even be cute as like a little scarf. We really honed in the bandana style. I wear these to work a lot because it's easy to keep the mane out of my face like while I'm trying to tattoo. Sock is a barber. She goes through like literally the exact same thing. So bandana is nice to keep your hair out of your face without committing to like the ouchy factor of a ponytail all day. And she made this for me out of Yarn Hero yarn. I have no idea like what colorway this is. Oh, it's just so beautiful. Yeah, I really have no idea like what the colorway is. I've never actually worked with Yarn Hero. I've seen them a lot of times like in person at shows and everything. I almost get hung up on the indecision factor, like while I'm sitting in front of the Yarn Hero booth. They have like a million colorways that I would absolutely love to use, but I just haven't like sprung for a purchase from them yet, but it's on my list. This is just so fun. I love the feel of this. It's like very drapey and not at all stiff, which is really good for a bandana. I would absolutely rather have like a draped bandana than one that's like making like a platform off the top of my skull. This is so pretty. I can't wait to wear this to work. I can't wait to wear this on the podcast. And this is just such a nice little piece of knitwear where you otherwise might not be able to incorporate knitwear into your outfit. Like if you're tattooing someone and there's just biohazardous materials kind of all over. So I'm really excited. This is so sweet. Totally forgot about this as like a concept. She told me that this was coming into like my purview and I was like, yeah, that sounds great. And then I forgot about it. Sock knit a whole pullover that she really tried her best, like tried to give it its fair shot, and like sometimes it just doesn't work out, and like that's not a big deal. It's totally fine. So I inherited Sock's Simone pullover. We talked about this on the Prickly Stitch. Oh, she told me there's no short rows in here, and it is very hard to see, but oh, there it is. It's perfect. So the Simone pullover is a textured Aran weight knit. I think it's intended to be all one color if I'm like remembering right, and obviously that's how Sock knit it too, but she knit this black version that's just absolutely beautiful. And there was something about, I actually can't even quite remember like what it was that she didn't like. Maybe it was like where it landed on her waist or something, but she said if you want this, like it's all yours, because I never wear it. And I threw it on when we were in the tattoo shop and it like perfect fit. If you remember episode 3, I talked about like my ratty black sweater that I just kind of like throw on. It's covered in like threads because it just lives around my living room and my sewing station and stuff. This gives the same sort of energy of like warm and cozy and snuggly and just so nice. It's now mine. I'll take it. So I have one more thing that I want to talk about for everyone watching. Please stick around. If you are Gail, you are no longer permitted to watch the rest of this episode. Turn the podcast off. You're done for the day. If you watch this, you will ruin your Christmas gift, but I have to show it. I'm morally obligated to show this thing. So Gail, thank you so much. I love you. Go on, you're done. If you are not Gail, I am so excited to share this work in progress. It is not finished by any means, but if you are a quilter, you know the process of finishing a quilt top seems very much like you finished like a giant undertaking, a giant like piece of the puzzle. I actually was at Joann Fabrics, not on Black Friday, maybe like a week. It had to have been like the week before, maybe 2 weeks before Black Friday. And Joann Fabrics was having this sale. All of their fat quarters, that was it. All of their fat quarters were $1. And I'm not like typically drawn to Joann Fabrics fat quarters. They're not very nice. Like usually the patterns are like pretty plain, or they're just not like sort of my vibe. But for $1 they could be, you know? So I succumbed to, I'm looking at my pile of fat quarters that were like remaining after this. I think I bought 15. Yes, I think I bought like 15 fat quarters in all in this Joann Fabrics trip, and there wasn't a plan for them for sure, but I did kind of like develop a color story that I will explain here in a moment. But I was looking at all these colors, and I'm gonna pull up the pattern I used on my phone. Okay, so I had sort of like a vague color transition from like point A to point F or whatever, you know, and I was just looking for an easy to execute, complicated looking quilt pattern And I found one for free online that used fat quarters, and I had 15 fat quarters. This particular pattern called for 12 of them to make this throw blanket. So this is the Roaring Waves throw blanket, and I will link the pattern below. It is 12 fat quarters, and this is the photo here. So this is the pattern photo included on the website here. It's sort of a chevron kind of color blend, color fade situation. The one they used was all different shades of blue. My color palette was like a little more on the rainbow side, but basically it's just 12 pieces of 12 fat quarters, 12 fat quarter pieces, cut up, rearrange, you know, fold it, make it two, like all that stuff, whatever. Long story short, this quilt top took me like a day, like one day, and it is I think it's like 55 by 57 inch, so it's just like a proper throw blanket. But let me back up. I'm gonna kind of unfold this thing and show you, because I just love how this turned out. Check her out. So we've got red into orange, into yellow, into pinky purple. She's so cute. And then I have added this border to the edge. This is just some like keepsake calico fabric from Joann Fabrics that I bought by the bolt. Oh, there's a thread. Don't look at it. Look how pretty this is though, like for real. This, in my opinion, as like a brand new quilter, and you'll probably not think so if you've been quilting for a long time, but this looks way more complicated than it is. It's actually so easy. I really, really like this pattern. If you are a new beginner quilter, like I cannot recommend this enough, especially if you have a fat quarter set like lying around. Again, it only took 12, and because I paid $1 for each one of these, this is like a $12 quilt top, not counting like the border that I chose to put on it. But very inexpensive, very easy to execute. I feel like this will look great with any color palette. It doesn't have to be like this fading situation. It doesn't have to be monochrome. Like it just really, really works. And there's enough space on each of these rectangular pieces that like you can still see some of these cutie pie patterns on here. They're just so fun. I love this. This is probably like one of my most like aesthetic quilts. I'm usually in it for like the really hideous like nonsense patchwork pieces, but I just love this. So this is gonna be Gail's Christmas present. I have the backing and the batting cut staring at me over there. I just don't feel like wrangling it. There's something about like the big pieces of fabric and getting on the floor and pinning it and stuff. It's just so annoying. My favorite parts of making a quilt are obviously like piecing the quilt top and the binding. And then everything else honestly is like for the birds. Like I do not care. If I had $1 million, I would just make quilt tops and send them off to be quilted and then bring them back and do the binding myself. But I love this so far. I'm really excited to quilt it. I think I'm gonna do just like a random, like sort of kind of squiggle situation. I'm not really sure. I did decide to add this border on just to give it a few extra inches. This is a 2.5 inch border, or 2.5 inch pieces, so it'll end up being a 2 inch border around the entire thing. I was thinking about wrangling all the intersections of these seams with like the quilting aspect of them, and then also doing like the binding, and I just like didn't feel like it, so I was like, I'll just slap a border on there. And I love the like white gray looking color with it. It really like falls to the background in my opinion compared to like the rest of this colorful quilt. So I am very excited. I'm gonna do the backing is actually this exact colorway, this print here, and then the binding I'm gonna do the same. So it really like the focus is just on the colors and the overall pieced pattern itself, which is really great. So I am so excited to finish that up. I hope this week, if these elves will dismount from my sewing machine, I am hoping to get that done this week. I have a couple other things that I want to like send off to Gail. I don't know if you're like this with like your friends, your crafting friends especially, but it just seems like there's always a pile of stuff in my house that I'm like oh, I'm gonna give this to Gail. Oh, I'm gonna give this to Sock. Oh, I'm gonna give this to Brienne. And it's just, everybody has like their little pile. And then when I see you, or like if I have to mail one thing, I just like mail everything all together. It's a very exciting piece of the Gail package that's gonna be mailed off for Christmas. But I do think that's it. I think this is nothing short of a miracle that I managed to like wrap up this entire episode before Nate gets home and is like, oh, there you are talking to no one. So I'm gonna finish it off here. I hope you had a totally bearable Thanksgiving. I hope you're having a very crafty week. I will be back in the next, probably in the next couple days. Let's get real. I have so much stuff to talk about. I have a bunch of like side projects and videos and things that I'm gonna be working on in the next couple of weeks. So I will see you on the next one. All right, thanks for hanging. Bye.